Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GoVMlab Mastering VCF Real Enterprise Deployment Series, episode number 3. Now, in this episode, we are going to discuss something extremely important, something that most engineers misunderstand completely. Most people think VCF is just a bundle of VMware products like vSphere, NSX, vSAN, but VCF is much bigger than products. VCF is an operational architecture designed for enterprise cloud infrastructure. And once you understand that difference, your entire perspective towards VMware Cloud Foundation changes. So, in this lecture, we will understand why engineers misunderstand VCF, why VCF is not just products, and we will also understand how the VCF cloud stack is structured. And we will discuss about what are the basic differences between management domains and workload domains, and most importantly, what these domains are. Because understanding products makes you an engineer, administrator, but understanding architecture makes you an architect. So before we start, hi everyone, I am Neeraj Mantri, VMware and cloud security architect with 19 years of experience in virtualization, data center, cloud, and security solutions. Before we go deeper into the architecture itself, guys, let's quickly reconnect what we have learned in our previous episode. So, in episode 02, which means the previous lecture, and if you have not watched out the previous two lectures, I would strongly recommend you guys that first go and watch out episode number 1 and 2 of this lecture series before you join us on episode number 3. So, in the previous episode, we understood a very important shift happening across enterprise infrastructure. Traditional environments were heavily fragmented. We talked about separate compute teams, separate storage operations, separate networking management solutions, and completely different operational workflows. And that's what we discussed in the previous episode. And we also understood because of this fragmented approach, enterprises start facing complexity, slow deployments, operational silos, and inconsistent infrastructure operations. And that's why we discussed why modern organizations today are moving toward unified cloud operations. Unified cloud operations, which talks about collaborative approach, no isolated tools, not disconnected infrastructure stacks, but unified cloud provides you consistent cloud operating model. And this is exactly where VMware Cloud Foundation fits in. VCF brings together compute, storage, network, automation, and lifecycle operation into one single unified cloud platform. So, as you could see on your screen in episode number 2, we understood why enterprise need VCF, right? We understood about these operational silos, and we also discussed about why enterprise are looking for a unified cloud operating model because of the fragmented infrastructure. And that's what our VCF fits in as a one single unified cloud platform. So now, guys, in this episode number 3, we are going one more level deeper because understanding VCF Use cases is one thing, but understanding the architecture behind it, that is where the real transformation begins. So now let's begin with the biggest misconception most of the engineers still have about VMware Cloud Foundation. As you could see, this is exactly we wanted to highlight that how most engineers think. Most engineers think VCF is equal to vSphere plus NSX plus vSAN. And technically, that statement sounds correct. Does it sound correct architecturally? It is completely wrong. Why? Because if VCF was only a bundle of products, enterprises would never ever redesign their entire cloud strategy around it. They could simply install all these products independently. Let me give you a simple real world example. Imagine you buy a CPU, a RAM, storage, and networking separately. Does that automatically become a modern cloud platform? If you just buy CPU, RAM, storage, CPU, RAM, storage, networking separately, does that automatically gives you a modern cloud platform? The answer is no, because it is still just hardware components. Exactly the same thing happens in enterprise IT. Installing vSphere, installing NSX, installing vSAN separately does not automatically create a cloud operating model, because enterprises do not struggle only with the products. Always remember, guys, enterprises do not struggle only with the products. Enterprises struggle with operations, they struggle with automation, they struggle with standardization, consistency, patching, upgrade, and the entire life cycle management. And not only that, regulation, governance, compliance, and most importantly, consistent consistency across the environment is another challenge for the organization. And that is where VCF, VMware Cloud Foundation, changes the game. Because always remember, enterprises do not buy VCF because they need more tools. Enterprises buy VCF because they want a one single unified operational cloud operating architecture, cloud operating model. That's what industry needs it. So now the next question comes, if VCF is not just a bundle of products, then what exactly it is? And that's what takes us to the next slide. And as you could see, it says very clearly that VCF is not a bundle of products. It is an architecture. VCF is not a bundle. VCF is an architecture. And this single understanding changes everything. Why? Because architecture means standardization. Architecture means automation, integration. Architecture means life cycle management and your operational consistency built directly into the platform itself. Now think about a large enterprises for a moment. Maybe let's imagine let's take a case study of a bank or a telecom company, or maybe it could be a global healthcare organization. All these big giant organization, they may operate thousands of virtual machines. They might be having a multiple data centers spread across various geographical locations. They might be having hybrid cloud environments. They might be having a strict compliance requirements. And most importantly, they would be having 24 by 7 uptime expectations, high availability. Now imagine managing all of that manually. What a life would have been if we are managing such a massive big organization. Imagine you as an engineer, look at the pain point. Every upgrade in that such environment becomes risky. Every patch in that environment becomes stressful. Every environment behaves differently, irrespective of where your workloads are running. Every environment behaves differently. Every deployment requires a lot of coordination across various teams. And that complexity becomes extremely difficult for enterprises to scale. And this is exactly why enterprises no longer want isolated infrastructure products. The point what we just talked about, that VCF is not just a bundle of products, because this is the exact reason why enterprises no longer want isolated infrastructure product. Today, enterprises want standardized cloud operations, fully automated workflows, and simplified lifecycle management. And GCF, VMware Cloud Foundation, delivers that through architecture. And this is why VCF is positioned as a modern unified cloud operating model, not just virtualization. So now once you understand that, you begin to realize something even more bigger, because now you understood that VCF it's not just a bundle, it's an architecture. And now once you believe into the architecture, it changes everything for you and you start realizing something even more bigger. And that take us to the next slide. So now let's pause for a moment and let's think beyond products, because this is where most engineers make a mistake. For many years, the industry was focused on virtualization. We always focusing on learning how to create virtual machines, how to manage clusters, how to configure storage, how to configure networking. Well, honestly, that worked really well for traditional data centers. But if you see, modern enterprises are no longer operating traditional data centers. Today, the enterprises are operating private clouds, hybrid cloud platforms, Kubernetes environments, AI ML workloads, automated infrastructure, and cloud scale operations. And that changes everything for us, because now infrastructure is no longer just about running VMs. Infrastructure must behave like a cloud platform, meaning should be automated, scalable, lifecycle aware, secure, operationally consistent. So now, if you look at the left side of the screen, this is how you could visualize that how many environment is still operating today. Separate compute team, separate network team, separate storage team. And eventually, these kind of operating model, right, talks about different tools, imposes new challenges of different tools, different policies, different operational model. And as an outcome of that, everything becomes very complex, very slow, A lot of manual operations are required and difficult to scale. But on the other way, if you really compare with the right side, this is what is our unified platform where everything works together. Everything works together, whether it's being your compute, whether it's being your storage, whether it's being your networking, automation, lifecycle, operations, security, automation, everything works together as a one integrated architecture. And this is the biggest mindset shift I want every learner to understand that VCF is not just trying to improve your virtualization. VCF is trying to modernize your enterprise cloud operation. And that's a very big difference, guys. Because virtualization solves your server consolidation, but cloud infrastructure solves operational scalability. And this is exactly why enterprises are moving towards unified cloud platform, not because they need more products, not because they need a bundle of products. Enterprises are moving towards unified cloud platform today because they need operational control at scale of cloud. And that's what your VCF is all about. Let me give you a very simple real world example. Even if it uh, looks quite difficult, let me give you a simple real world example. Imagine a large enterprises with 5,000 hosts, multiple data centers. Again, imagine the same scenario. There are different security teams, different operational teams, application teams, Kubernetes workloads, AI ML workloads, continuous patching requirement. And imagine managing as an engineer everything manually with bunch of tools, bunch of dashboard, and the bunch of security controls, separate tools and separate architecture. And very quickly, you would have noticed that your operations becomes unpredictable. One team upgrades networking, another team upgrades compute, another team changes storage policies, and suddenly compatibility issues begin. Suddenly, downtime risk increases and operational complexity explode. But now you imagine the same environment running as a unified cloud platform and where your life cycle is automated, your architectures are standard, your networking is integrated, and your operations are centralized. So that is the key difference, guys, between running any infrastructure, running infrastructure and operating a cloud platform. That's a big difference. That you are running certain infrastructure, that's a different thing. But operating a cloud platform is a completely different thing. So now the next question becomes very important for us. If VCF is actually a cloud platform architecture, then exactly what are the layers behind this architecture? So now that takes us to the next slide where we will go a little deeper inside the VCF cloud stack. So now we understood one of the things is that VCF is not just about bundle of products, but VCF is about architecture. We also understand that VCF is not just about virtualization, but it is about cloud operating model, a modern unified cloud operating model. Now we move into the architectural view of VMware Cloud Foundation. As you could see, VCF is designed as a structured cloud stack. And at the bottom, if you see at the bottom of this stack, you have a physical infrastructure. Physical infrastructure, you have servers, you have storage, you have networking, and the other type of hardware. On top of that, on top of that, this is your next layer where you have the software defined infrastructure layers. For the compute, you have vSphere. For the storage, you have vSAN. For the networking, you have NSX. Then comes your next layer, which is your management layer. This management layer controls your operations and automation. So this management layer is responsible for operations and automation. Then the next layer, what do we see is workload domains. The workload domain is the layer where your actual enterprise application runs. Your actual workloads or your enterprise applications are running on this layer. And finally, applications and businesses services at the top. So you can think about this architecture like constructing a modern smart building, right? At the bottom, you require a strong physical foundation. Then you would require electricity, you would require security systems, you would require connectivity, you would require centralized management systems. And finally, people will start consuming, building through the application and the services. Cloud infrastructure works exactly the same way. Applications, what you see today, are the only visible layer. Today, we all see Netflix, we all see Amazon Prime, we all see Hotstar, we all see many other applications, and we consume them, right? So we consume these applications because as a consumer, the only visible layer for me are these applications. But we all know underneath there is a massive operational architecture making everything work reliably. And this is why we are keep saying that VCF is not just virtualization anymore. It is a complete cloud infrastructure architecture stack. Right? So now we understood that VCF is not just virtualization, it's a complete modern cloud operating model. And it gives you a cloud infrastructure stack. But inside this architecture, there's a one concept which becomes extremely important. And that takes us to our next slide. So as you could see, VCF is built using domains. And this is one of the most important architectural concepts inside VMware Cloud Foundation. The management domain controls, manages, and monitors, and in fact, it automates the entire cloud environment. That's the key component of your VCF cloud stack, where it controls, it manages, it monitors, and it also automates the entire cloud environment. And this is where critical infrastructure services operate. Now, think of the management domain like an airport control tower, right? In the airport, we all have seen the control tower. So think management domain is like an airport control tower. Passengers never directly interact with it, right? We, as a passenger who is flying in that aircraft, how many times we have been in contact with the airport control tower. We never interacted with it, but we all know that that control tower at airport, it controls your operations, coordination, visibility, security, and in fact, overall management. And believe it or not, without that control tower, the airport will become a chaos. So this is what we call the invisible layers, right? And this is exactly what same thing happens in the cloud infrastructure. And that is what your management domain does it for our entire safe stack. Now, on the other side, we have something called workload domain. Now, these are the environments where your enterprise applications actually run. So your enterprise applications are actually running in the workload domain. So think about it in this way, where your management domain is a control layer. Your management domain is a control layer which controls the cloud, where your workload domain is the layer which consumes the cloud. So one layer is controlling the cloud operations, where the other layer or the workload domain, it is consuming the cloud because that is where your enterprise application services are running. So one manage operations. So this guy is managing your operations, where the other guy is delivering, the other person, the workload domain is delivering the real business services for our customers. And this separation is one of the key reasons enterprise achieve scalability, what we have been talking about. This is one of the key reasons enterprises achieve scalability, they achieve operational consistency, and they also achieve life cycle control at scale. And if you're beginning to understand how real enterprise cloud architecture operates, then please make sure you subscribe to GoVMlab, because this series is designed differently, guys. And we are not just teaching VMware products in this series, we are helping engineers to understand how real enterprises design. We are helping engineers to understand how real enterprise deploy, operate, and scale your modern cloud infrastructure. So one thing I want you to remember, the tools change, the version change, the technology evolve. But architecture thinking is what build the long-term careers, guys. And trust me, the upcoming episodes of this particular series are going even deeper into real enterprise cloud operation. So if you're enjoying the VCF journey, we would request everyone, please like, share, and subscribe to GoVMlab YouTube channel and learn VMware the way enterprises learn. So now let's move on to the next slide, where we try to connect everything together. And this is the real power of VCF. This is this is not vSphere plus NSX plus vSAN. This is your cloud operating model. This is about compute, network, storage, all operating together through automation, through operations, and most importantly, lifecycle management. And when all these services work together as a one, enterprises gain operational consistency. Now, for a moment, think about public cloud platform. I hope every one of you would have been familiar with at least one of the public cloud platform, being AWS, being Azure, being Google Cloud. Now, When you use AWS, let's take an example of AWS. When you use AWS, do you separately think about storage services, what AWS is providing, like EBS, EFS? Do you think separately about network services, what AWS provides, like VPC, like security groups, like transit gateway, and many other services? Do you think like a separate services? Do you think separately about compute services, what AWS provide? It could be your EC2 instance or EC2 service. It could be your EKS a service. Or do you think automation separately, that how do I automate everything? The answer is no, right? Because in the cloud, everything feels unified. And that is exactly what VCF, VMware Cloud Foundation, tries to achieve inside your enterprise data center. VMware Cloud Foundation provides you, again, I keep repeating one thing again and again, that VMware Cloud Foundation provides you a consistent operational model. And this consistency becomes extremely important when enterprises scale globally across multiple environments. And now the entire picture starts becoming clear. And that takes us to the next slide. Take us to the next slide. As you could see on your screen, which says very clearly that a VCF, VMware Cloud Foundation, is an architecture. It is an architecture which is built layer by layer, from physical infrastructure to compute layer to storage layer to networking and security, automation, and finally, a unified cloud platform. And this is exactly the reason why enterprises adopt VMware Cloud Foundation, not because of individual projects, not because of individual products, individual technology stacks, but because this architecture, what VCF gives, it simplifies cloud operations. And this is also a point where engineers start evolving into architects, because engineers usually focus on a very specific set of products. But we know, and as all of you would be knowing it, that architecture are not focusing on individual products. Architecture, architects focus on integrations. Architects focus on operations. Architects focus on scalability, standardization, automation, and lifecycle thinking. And enterprises today, believe it or not, need more architecture thinkers than product installers. I'll repeat this statement once again, guys, that enterprises today need more architecture thinkers than product installers. So now the next question comes, how do how does this domain actually work internally, right? So that is the next set of question comes in our mind, that we have talked about management domain, we have talked about workload domain, we understood what exactly how management domain controls the operations, where your workload domain give the real business values. But the next question comes is that how do these domain actually work internally? What exactly happens inside the management? How these workload domains are created? How does this lifecycle automation really operate? And how does this VCF provides consistency across the entire cloud platform? That is what we have been keep talking about it. Consistent cloud platform. And that's where the question comes, that how VCF maintain consistency across the entire cloud platform. And that is exactly, guys, what we are going to discuss in the next episode. In the next episode of this particular series, we'll go deeper into management domains, we'll go deeper into workload domains and VCF lifecycle operations. And trust me, guys, this is where the architecture becomes even more interesting. So now, before we close, let's have a quick recap of today's architectural journey of Mastering VCF series. So today, you completely change the way you think about VMware Cloud Foundation, right? With today's episode, we tried to help you to understand what exactly VMware Cloud Foundation is. We understood that VCF is not just a bundle of products. We understood how the entire VCF cloud stack is structured. We understood how domain operate, what is management domain, what is workload domain, and we also understood that why VCF behaves like a cloud operating model. And believe me or not, this understanding, guys, is what separates engineers from architects, administrators from architects. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining this episode of the Mastering VCF series by GoVMlab. If you found value in this session, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this series with fellow infrastructure professionals. I will see you guys in the next episode where we go inside VCF domain. Until then, keep learning, keep building, and keep thinking architecture first. Because at GoVMlab, we don't teach tools, we teach architecture. So thank you once again, guys. See you in the next episode of Mastering VCF series.